Hello and welcome to Allegedly Astrology. Each week we break down the astrology that happened during some of the biggest scandals and events in history.
Thanks so much to everyone for listening to our show. And if you want to support us, you can leave a 5-star review and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen on.
And if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and DM us a screenshot of your review, we'll make you a custom meme of your big three, send you a quick write-up about it. It's a big hit. You won't regret it.
We also have a very cool and exclusive Patreon. So if you want more awesome astrology content, join us at patreon.com/allegedlyastrology.
And make sure to follow us, Allegedly Astrology, on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and Allegedly Astro on Twitter. And you could also visit our site, allegedlyastrology.com, to learn more about us, the show, or book a reading with Dana.
All right. Well, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're not going to do seasons anymore. So you're going to hear from us more regularly. So instead of just like a whole bunch of eps and then we disappear into the night, we're going to post a 2-part episode each month. And this is the first time we're going to do that. We can't wait to hear what you guys think. So with that, Dana, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Luigi Mangione.
AKA Dana and I's Italian cousin.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. So this is part 1. If you guys don't know who Luigi is, there's been plenty about him. So go on the internet, do your own research. But he was identified as a suspect in the killing of Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. And this killing took place on December 4th, 2024 in New York City. And after this murder, he was seen as a hero to certain groups of people for standing up to what many people say is the extremely corrupt health insurance industry. He's currently awaiting trial. I think he's not far from my house in Brooklyn. Yeah.
He's in the same jail as Diddy and
Keith Raniere at one point. Well, Keith Raniere is gone. Remember when Keith Raniere was there and his followers put up flashlights?
No.
That was crazy. Anyway, let's learn a little bit more about Luigi and his astrology.
So Luigi right now, as of 2025, he is 26 years old. He's from
Maryland.
And he's super smart. He's Ivy League educated. He comes from a super wealthy Baltimore area family. His grandparents were real estate developers, and people that know him just said he was super normal. He was really smart. He was the top of his class, also at an elite private school before graduating from UPenn. So what is this boy's big three?
Luigi was born on May 6, 1998 in Towson, Maryland, and we don't know what time he was born, but he does have...
Come on. Where are the Luigi fans that have been contacting him in prison? Does anybody have access to his birth time? Please let us know.
Maybe I should have sent him a letter.
Did say he's not...
He can't
respond to any
Well, I would have to just send me the time. I know where you were born.
Well, you should reach out to his lawyers.
Yeah. I'm not
Imagine,
going to, but
with all the stuff they have to deal with. We got to stop it all to ask for time.
It might be worthwhile. So he has a Taurus sun and a Virgo moon. He's, an earth guy. He's a Taurus sun. So he's hot, rich. He strives primarily for security and comfort, and life is not worth living without fulfilling these goals. He's ruled by Venus, which is in detriment in Aries in his chart. So a detriment planet is rebellious. It will deviate from the norm. Also, people will be hard on him. And Venus in Aries is the 12th house from his Taurus placements. He also has his Mars in Taurus. So there's subconsciousness at play here because the 12th house will always relate to subconscious efforts and things going on behind the scenes, more mental activity. Also, his sun is conjunct Mars, so he's action oriented. And his sun is trine the moon. So this is about health and wealth, especially in Taurus and Virgo. Mostly in Taurus and Virgo. And neuroscience, I guess you could really say it could be about health and wealth. But Virgo's a sign of health, Taurus is a sign of wealth. And his sun squares Uranus and Neptune in Aquarius, so he's unpredictable and you never really know what his next move is. And his sun is opposite Chiron exactly, so his life is defined by facing an injury.
Oh, damn.
And then we see his Virgo moon. So again, this is a sign of health. He could have a sensitive stomach. And he's also very critical and regimented. He's ruled by Mercury in Aries. So he's impulsive, bold, daring, quick on his feet. His moon is conjunct the North Node, which makes him unpredictable. His body is dictating his future. And And his Virgo moon squares Pluto in Sagittarius. So this is being prone to extreme emotions or health conditions requiring major shifts and things beyond his control requiring transformation. And his moon trines Mars. So he's athletic, and ease of mobility is something he is accustomed to. A trine is an aspect that you don't even have to think about. So the moon is the body, Mars is action. This is sort of like just being good at sports or really knowing your body. And his moon is opposite Jupiter. So this is generous. It can also skew delusional with Jupiter in Pisces, and someone who's a dreamer and really wants things to be good for everyone. His Venus and Mars are in mutual reception, mutual debilitation. So his Venus is in Aries and Mars is in Taurus. These are both debilitated placements. So it'll be rebellious, attractive, interesting, really about taking matters into his own hands, as Taurus is very tactile and Aries will go after anything. And his Pluto squares the nodes. So this is about extreme situations, changing his fate. Also, Neptune stationed retrograde 2 days before he was born. So Neptune plays a major role in his life. And Neptune is about fame, delusion, religion, intoxication, going off the grid for sure. Things like that.
If all hot girls have IBS, then all Virgo moon men have sensitive tummies. All right. Well, keep in mind that Virgo moon and all of his health-related things, because we'll find out more about that. But at the time of his arrest, he was a data engineer for TrueCar, a digital retailing website for new and used cars. He'd also spent time in a surfing community in Hawaii, but left due to a back injury, which had worsened from surfing and hiking.
Yeah, and he actually had surgery on his back, and he reportedly posted about his struggles with chronic back pain and having brain fog. And his back pain at times prohibited him from doing normal things such as surfing or playing volleyball. I think also, bizarrely, his landlord said he couldn't have sex anymore, which I'm not sure how.
Also, can you imagine your landlord commenting on your sex life like this?
Certainly not.
He definitely had a chronic back condition where his vertebrae are flips out of place. So it causes severe pain. So, a lot of people who suffer from chronic ailments and stuff have a hard time in their sex life. But weird about the landlord.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently he read a lot of books about how the healthcare industry is crooked. He even commented on a book about the Unabomber. And people say he was allegedly motivated by resentment at what he called parasitic health insurance companies, which he's not wrong about.
Yeah. So that's Luigi. Now we're going to move on to the other person in this event, which is Brian Thompson. Brian was the CEO of the U.S. health insurance company UnitedHealthcare from April 2021 until his death. And under his leadership, UnitedHealthcare's profits increased from $12 billion in 2021 to $16 billion in 2023. So he's really making them a lot of money. So what was his big three?
Brian Thompson was born on July 10th, 1974 in Ames, Iowa. And we also don't have his birth time, so we don't know his rising sign either. But he's a Cancer sun and most likely a Pisces moon, but the moon entered Aries after 8 p.m. on his date of birth, so he could also be an Aries moon. Looking at his birth chart, he's a Cancer sun. He's business-oriented, organized. He's good at planning and plotting. He takes care of his own. This is someone who's territorial and really good at making lateral moves. Think about how a crab, which is a Cancer, they move side to side. And it's the axis of business because it's Capricorn and Cancer. And so his Cancer sun was either ruled by the moon in Pisces or Aries. So if it's moon in Pisces, then he would be a dreamer, intuitive, but he would have to be cautious of believing his own lies. And if his moon is in Aries, then he's a self-starter, someone with a chip on his shoulder, a strong self-belief, very action-oriented, and would have a drive to put an end to things in this lifetime because it would be a last quarter moon. And his sun is trine domicile Jupiter in Pisces, so he's lucky and well-liked. His Mercury in Cancer squares Pluto in Libra, so this is what you see is not really always what you get. And he's also sort of always trying to get to the bottom of things. So he might not always say the truth, but he always really wants to get to the truth. He's able to speak with power and a very power-oriented mind, since Mercury is the mind and Pluto is power. So it's just really also pushing yourself to be more and maybe to make bigger promises. Maybe he also owed someone money. Maybe this wasn't even about what we think it's about. As someone with a Mercury square Pluto could really get themselves into some trouble. But I don't really need to write fan fiction.
Because
more than enough.
there were rumors when this first went down before Luigi was caught, that Brian Thompson and his wife were living separately. They were maybe officially separated or not. Like she was seeing someone else. So people were like, oh, did his wife put a hit on him? I feel like there was a lot of things are not what they seem on the surface.
Many people argue that private health insurance functions similarly to the mafia.
You're not wrong.
So there's that. His natal Venus in Gemini squares his Jupiter in Pisces. So Venus square Jupiter, a square is an uncomfortable aspect, but it's Venus and Jupiter, so it's not that uncomfortable. They're the two benefics, but this could make someone a pleasure seeker, prone to excess. This could also, maybe you're a good person, but other things overcome you. Wanting to be rich overcomes your desire to be, your values. Well said. Beautiful. Thank you. His Venus is also conjunct the South Node, so maybe he was charitable in a past life and he just hadn't done enough. And then his Jupiter squares the node, so his destiny is really shaped by truth, as Jupiter is truth and the nodes are your fate. Also, and maybe a neutral way of saying this is that his destiny was shaped by beliefs on a large scale, like not even his own beliefs, right? It could just be the beliefs of the people. And then Mercury stationed direct one day after he was born. So Mercury, whenever a planet stations direct or retrograde, Chris Brennan always says this is like having an exclamation point next to that planet in your chart. So for him, Mercury is an exclamation point. So this is being very intelligent, a smooth talker, knowing what to say to appease people, especially with Mercury in Cancer, and probably also being very funny. I think Mercury in Cancer is a very funny placement. I think one of my favorite comedians, Michelle Wolf, has this placement. And then Jupiter stationed retrograde 3 days before he was born. So Jupiter also will have an exclamation point, especially because Jupiter is in domicile in Pisces. So this is the will to power. This is also, Jupiter in Pisces is very generous. It's seeming good. And also with Jupiter trining the sun, it's really believing that his own goodness was important. And so without knowing anything about him, this could be getting caught up in wanting to seem good more than wanting to do good with a trine.
Also, too, with Jupiter square the nodes, his destiny is also shaped by wealth.
Yes.
Excess, because, obviously Jupiter expands.
And both he and Luigi were born in a year when Jupiter was in Pisces and when Venus retrograded in Capricorn, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, yeah, because it is so dreamy, we're having a good time, but also Venus retrograding in Capricorn is I'm obsessed with values, but are they the right values?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Interesting indeed. Well, we know that Luigi had a huge impact on Brian's life, literally causing it to come to an end. So Dana, let's check out their synastry.
Okay, so Luigi's Pluto is conjunct Brian's Neptune in Sagittarius to the degree. So Luigi's Pluto is conjunct Brian's Neptune in Sagittarius. They're both at 7 degrees. Pluto is death and Neptune is a blind spot, so Brian never sees him coming. This also suggests that he already had or was going to have to contend with Gen Z at some point, since Pluto's a generational planet. Pluto would have been at 7 degrees Sagittarius for quite a long time in 1998. And their Jupiters are conjunct in Pisces, so they actually had many beliefs in common and definitely shared dogma. I bet that had they met in a different context, they would have agreed on a lot of things, and maybe they had the same reasons for living or the same religion.
See, the Pluto conjunct Brian's Neptune, Gen Z does ride so hard for Luigi, so
yeah, they do.
They would be so against Brian.
Yeah, that's true. Their moons are maybe opposite in Virgo and Pisces if Brian's moon is in Pisces. So Luigi's moon in Virgo, that's a sign of health, healing, and doctors. If Brian's is in Pisces, it's intuitive, sensitive, illusory. Both are the signs of the martyr. And Pisces is the axis of martyr.
It's literally giving martyrdom.
Yeah.
Time.
And Luigi's Saturn is conjunct Brian's Chiron. So Chiron is wounds and Saturn is karma and death. And Luigi really became his Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
The final wound. If it even was Luigi, we still don't know, right?
Technically, he has not been accused of
also, the eyebrows just look different. I'm not even trying to be conspiratorial. I just don't. The eyebrows seem different. It seemed like 4 different people to me, but I haven't really looked that much into it, honestly. And just looked at some pictures and said, no, those are different people. So Brian's Pluto is opposite Luigi's Venus. Brian's Pluto in Libra, opposite Luigi's Venus in Aries. Pluto is power and Venus is pleasure. So Luigi feels threatened by Brian. Brian took away his pleasure and his joie de vivre, and he's holding Brian responsible for that, even if, Brian is not directly responsible, but although you could argue through very many channels he is. And Venus is important for Luigi, especially since his Sun and Mars are in Taurus. So he's very Venusian. as you can see when you look at him, because he's fine as hell. And their Mars square each other. So Luigi's Mars is detriment in Taurus, which is a sign of pleasure and security. In detriment, this means that Mars is calm until they're not, and then it's scary. Like, they really pick their own battles, and then once they've chosen it, it's like, oh shit, I don't want to be around. And then Brian's Mars is in Leo, the sign of kings, but Mars retrograde was in Leo, at the time. So it's sort of saying, not so fast, pump the brakes on this return. And then their Mars square Mars. So this is going to be a battle of wills, and Taurus is a better planner than Leo, for sure. And then Brian's Uranus is opposite Luigi's Saturn in Aries. So Brian's Uranus is in Libra, and Uranus is shock and surprise, and Saturn is discipline and withholding. So Luigi gave Brian the shock of his life, and he was not able to act with, discipline as he may have in other cases, but he also really planned it out. So it's both Saturnian in the fact that it was a plan, but not in the fact that it was not withholding, right? So there's that.
Damn. Yeah, they have some interesting synastry. I'm going to guess, well, just because of the eclipses, I'm going to say Brian is a Pisces moon, but just only because of the eclipses happening.
I could really see him having a last quarter moon, and also having his moon in the same sign as Luigi's Venus, Mercury, and Saturn. But I could also see him having his moon conjunct Jupiter and sort of being like dopey, silly guy.
Dopey, silly. Okay, so besides Luigi and Brian, the other thing that's relevant to this story is UnitedHealthcare. So let's just talk a little bit about that. So again, UnitedHealthcare is where Brian was employed as the CEO. It is a huge for-profit company that specializes in health insurance and healthcare services. It's one of the largest health insurance companies in the United States, both how many employees, the amount of money they make, and also the just amount of people they insure. And they got this huge because in the 1990s, they bought up a ton of other health insurers. So it's just this huge company. It keeps growing and it gives coverage to millions of Americans.
Yeah. And this is simply put, is a huge company that makes a ton of money. We're not going to get too far into how we feel about the healthcare system in the United States, but the main point that Sarah made is it's a for-profit company. And it's so big that it's actually ranked 8th on the 2024 Fortune Global 500. UnitedHealthcare Group had a market capitalization of over $460 billion as of December 2024. And just to give you a sense of how much the health insurance companies make, the 4 of the top 20 companies in the Fortune 500 are health insurers with combined revenues of over $1 trillion with a T dollars.
Do you know what the other ones are?
It's going to be Cigna, Blue Cross, and what's the other one?
I'm just thinking about UHC was the cheapest insurer when I worked at a broker, an insurance broker. UHC was the cheapest, and all the other ones took us out and wined and dined us for blood with their blood money. I don't know. It was fun in terms of taking me to a Bulls game and getting me drunk at Paris Club.
Not the cheapest rates.
I mean, in terms of romancing the brokers.
Well, that's probably why they have the most money, because they don't waste it on taking Dana to the Bulls game.
I was fun.
But despite making so much money, and honestly, probably for this reason, UnitedHealthcare has repeatedly faced criticism for how it handles its claims. And Brian, the CEO, had received death threats before this happened due to, again, how he managed the claims. So
So maybe his moon was in Pisces then, never thinking it can get to you.
So what's UnitedHealthcare's chart like?
So they were founded in January 1977 in Minnetonka, Minnesota. So for this chart, I chose the full moon from January 5th, 1977. And, I just put it right around America's chart to really give us some context for what was going on here. So the full moon was at 15 degrees. America's sun is at 13 degrees Cancer. So the full moon in Cancer conjunct America's 8th house sun. The full moon is when the sun and the moon are exactly opposite. So the moon, which is the body and security, is lighting up the sun, aka God, in America's 8th house of insurance. And the sun is opposite in miserly Capricorn in the second house of banks and profits. And so did this like start as a desire to help people? I think maybe it did, because Cancer really wants to help and nurture people. But then there are a lot of other aspects going on in this chart that just say no. But the full moon says there is maybe some desire to help and nurture. And here's one that is just confusing. So Neptune is conjunct America's ascendant. So here's some benefit of the doubt, because I'm a giving person. When Neptune's conjunct someone's ascendant, they know not what they do. They can really lose themselves. They can become wrapped up in a dream of who others want them to be. And if they don't stay humble or grounded, they could be prone to destruction. But that's just the transit. If someone has Neptune natally in their chart, other people might get really confused about who they are, and they might feel like they have to be that person, but they're not confused about who they are necessarily. Pluto in Libra is conjunct America's exalted Saturn in the 11th house of social services, future planning, and generosity. This is what makes me think that the end goal of private health insurance was a financial scheme all along. And I'm only laughing because I sound like a conspiratorial psycho, but it's just so sinister. Pluto is sinister and transformative. And Pluto transiting America's exalted Saturn in Libra is absolutely like, it perverts the concept of liberty and justice for all.
That is America in and of itself. It's not just the healthcare industry. Okay,
well, I mean, but then this was happening all at that time.
Right.
Like the 70s really did turn things around. I've heard people say that before, and I believe them.
The 70s were a crazy-ass time.
So Saturn is in detriment in Leo. It's conjunct America's North Node in the 9th house of ethics, morals, and laws. And it's also, again, the house of God. So with Saturn in Leo in mutual reception, with the sun in Capricorn in the second house of profits. Saturn is in the 9th house, and this is like the Nietzschean version of killing God. So God is dead, and now we worship prophets, which the sun has moved to the second house. So again, I'm not saying like the creator has died. I'm saying the concept of God has been replaced with prophets and money. And Jupiter and the South Node are in America's 6th house of public health in Taurus. So Jupiter is generosity. The South Node is decrease. Taurus is a sign of wealth and comfort. And so this is like a decrease in comfort and security for the masses in favor of wealth for the few, I suppose.
Damn.
Yeah. And so,
I mean, this all just feels like, the optimism that we have where we're like, oh, doesn't this seem like a good idea? Like, in case something bad happens to you in the future, like you could have this financial benefit to help you. But then it's like at the end of the day, you're not really being helped and people are just making tons of money off of you.
Yeah, because like things become like there's just so many loopholes. Like HSAs were invented to basically get around the ACA and like also at the same time provide benefits for employees. But a lot of times they fuck you over more than a regular old insurance plan would have.
I mean, a Tylenol costing like $50 when you get it from the ER or
it's evil.
Is insane.
It's evil. There's it's true evil. There's just, I don't know what evil is if not for like that sort of boring thing. I am once again, I guess, Marxist. Prizing my season 1 role as Dana the Marxist. I guess I'm back. So this full moon in Cancer was square Pluto in Libra. So that's just sort of, I'm trying to give like the full moon picture now. And it's opposite Mercury retrograde. So we're going back on what we believe in. Mercury retrograde's the mindset, and Pluto is really sort of, I think, poisoning justice. Some really important things about 1977. Venus was retrograde in Aries in March and April, and we're coming up on Venus retrograde in Aries again. So this is pretty interesting. Whoa. But yeah, so we're repeating a cycle here. So Venus retrograde in Aries is repeating a cycle that's important for UHC. It's maybe every 8 years they sort of have to contend with this. The last time this happened was 2017.
And UHC is UnitedHealthcare. Dana was in the business, so she's already speaking in the lingo. Let's just remember, not everyone was an insurance broker back in the day.
Well, sure.
An insurance broker who drank 6 matchas today.
Out of fury.
Fury
coffee.
When trying to do the research for this chart. But look, we always say history repeats itself. What is it repeating? Astrological cycles. All right. So here we are. We're giving you a history lesson.
Wait, I was just looking what happened in 2017 to UnitedHealthcare. And it increased revenue by 9% to $201 billion. But they announced that they were pulling out of all but a few state healthcare exchanges provided under the Affordable Care Act. So it basically was like they made a bunch of money, but we're also not going to insure certain people anymore. So
I should know
sounds
that, but
par for the course. So just making a ton of money.
sinister. That's all I can say. Also, in 1977, the eclipses were in Libra and Aries, and we only have one more eclipse on that axis this year, and that's in Aries. But that's still, it's mirroring things from 77, meaning we're in an important cycle for UHC in general. 1977, Jupiter was in Gemini from April to August. So there's just a lot of things going on that are sort of like UHC has to answer for something. This is a seminal year for UHC.
I mean, to no one's surprise, I'm a little gagged by the Venus retrograde in Aries, but we
Most
know
surprised by.
things are cyclical.
What do we think is going to be part of this Venus in retrograde story for this company like Luigi? Do we think we're going to hear anything? We're coming up on a Venus retrograde in Aries. When is it happening, Dana?
It's happening from March 1st to April 12th.
So
and
soon.
Mercury will retrograde in Aries at the same time. And so what's important about the Venus retrograde in Aries from 1977 is that it was ruling these Libra lunar eclipses, which were conjunct Pluto and the North Node on America's Saturn. And so the Libra eclipses were ruled by Venus in Aries, which Aries is on the 5th house of children, but it's also on the house of gambling. So it's sort of like they started gambling with anything. Like everything became gambling.
Right. Now we're realizing what they're gambling with is our lives.
Yeah.
Oh, so dark and true.
It's true, though. You know what I
true.
mean?
No,
Like,
yeah, you had to say
we're
it.
just numbers on a page, and they're hoping we don't get sick, and they're hoping we don't use their services, and they're betting on all these things. And then when it doesn't play out that way, they're trying to recoup or deny as many costs as possible because it's a for-profit business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
you're
we're
right.
denying a lot of stuff.
Yeah, because it's AI. Something I talk about in therapy a lot is my refusal to be exploited again. And it just really feels like health insurance just makes you feel so exploited,
Yes, it 100% does.
especially if you
Yes.
don't know how to work around it, which I learned how to.
All right. Well, this concludes part 1. So we've learned about Luigi. We've learned about Brian Thompson. We've learned about UnitedHealthcare. Sarah, what are we going to look at in part 2?
The event and the fallout from the event.
And
Sounds like
of
a
course,
weekend album.
and predictions, of course. So you'll have to stay tuned for part 2 to see what Dana's predictions are going to be for all of the above. So thank you guys so much for listening to part 1, and we will be back with part 2 this month. Thank you guys so much for listening to Allegedly Astrology. I'm Elise,
I'm Dana.
And I'm Sarah.
and this is Allegedly Astrology.
Bye.
Bye.